sponsored by Credo. We're just going to wait a moment to let everyone have the chance to sign on. And before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items that we'd like to go over. If you can hear me okay, please use the raise hand option located on your control panel. Thank you. I actually, maybe I should mention this to Kristen. I actually can't see the hands being raised at the moment. So if someone looks good.
Looks like audio first. Yeah.
So there will be a recording of the webinar shared via email within 24 hours. At the conclusion of today's session, there will be a short survey that pops up on your screen. If you do not have the time to complete it now, the survey will also be shared in your follow-up email. We will also be conducting a few polls during this webinar. These are just really great questions to see what people are up to and for you to participate. And when prompted, please choose the best answer to the question you will see on your screen. Lastly, if you have a question during the webinar, please use the question portion of your control panel to submit them, and we will all answer the questions we have time for at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. Again, thank you for joining us today for Agents of Change, Librarians Innovating in the FYE Space. Pretty excited about this because I've also served on the judging panel, and this is really great content that the speakers will present today. And wanted to introduce basically this live webinar here, the inaugural FYE Innovation Award winners, Laura Kohl of Bryant University and Chris Bombaro, representing the Dickinson College, will discuss how they've been able to make positive impact on first-year students at their institutions. They will also share how they effectively shared their visions, demonstrated the value of information literacy in the FYE, and how your school can replicate the success of their programs. So in case you didn't know, the FYE Awards came out this past year. It's sponsored by Case Western Reserve University and Credo to recognize libraries and librarians finding innovative approaches to impacting first-year students. And so there were two categories here, the FYE Librarian Innovator Award, which you could see here, recognizing a librarian who brings distinction to the FYE space through programming and innovation. And then the FYE Library Innovation, recognizing the library's commitment to ensuring that there is a FYE programming. So without further ado, I will have Laura and Chris introduce themselves, and they will speak respectively. So. Oh, actually, sorry, before we get to that, we have actually a first poll one question. The question is, do you use ePortfolios or another kind of learning management system to support your FYE program? Please select the following. All right, hopefully we'll be able to see the responses. Laura, can you see the responses?
It's saying the poll is in progress right now, so not yet.
Okay.
It looks like we're having a little
There we go.
Okay.
I do see them now. So, hi, my name is Laura Kohl, and I am the Associate Director of Library Services at Bryant University. And it looks like we use an ePortfolio at our institution, so I'm going to respond to the results of our poll. So it looks like we have about 25% of our respondees saying yes, they use an ePortfolio or some kind of learning management system to support the FYE program. 63% saying no, and then we have 12% saying they're not sure. So hopefully some of you will gain some insight in how we're using them at Bryant University, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. Okay, so just to get started on what's going on at Bryant, this is a slide that has a huge infographic, and I just wanted to give you guys something to take a look at and explore some of the information that has been shared by the Office of Institutional Research at Bryant, and to give you a little bit of background. So Bryant University is a small private college located in Smithfield, Rhode Island. The statistics that you're seeing here are from fall 2017, and you can see that we have about 3,700 students. The majority of those are undergrads, and we do have a graduate program as well. Bryant was established in 1863 as a business school, and in 2004 became Bryant University, at which point it was split into the College of Business and the College of Arts and Sciences. And one of the things that really differentiates Bryant from other institutions is that students who major in the College of Business minor in the College of Arts and Sciences, and students who major in the College of Arts and Sciences minor in the College of Business. And this is a fantastic thing because the students really become well-rounded. They're gaining this really diverse education through this particular programming. And just so you know, as a little fun fact, the New England Patriots used to practice on our campus for their summer camps from 1976 to 2002. So I just had to throw that out there since we just had our Super Bowl. So I figured you'd get a kick out of that. So we can go to the next slide. Hopefully. Ray, can you go to the next slide? I don't think I can.
Ray, are you still there?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry, there was some technical issues, I think, at my end. Should I move to the next slide?
Yes, please. Great, thank you. So just to also provide a little bit of background in the first year experience at Bryant. So we had a first year experience program, a course that was a 1-credit face-to-face course. And that course was a long-running course, well-established. It was faculty and professional staff taught that course. And that was something that worked well. But in the years leading up to 2012, there was some investigation in general education curriculum at Bryant, and there was, as in higher education sort of trends, there was this shift to learning outcomes focused curriculum and really a focus on the learner. And so in the lead up to 2012, there were different groups that were sort of working on the gen ed curriculum. And then in January of 2012, a group really came together to focus on what the learning outcomes would be that would be the hallmarks of a Bryant University education. So what skills would be most important for students at Bryant to graduate with. And at that point, I was lucky enough to be part of the group that had been looking at the revamp of the general education, and then in turn to be part of the group that helped establish the learning outcomes. And as you can see here on the slide, I have the learning outcomes that were decided upon: effective communication, critical thinking, diversity awareness, ethical reasoning, and ta-da, information literacy. We were very excited that learning outcome became part of those key outcomes for that general education curriculum, this gateway curriculum. In addition to those learning outcomes, student success that had been discussed through that first year experience seminar that we had offered was now going to be incorporated into the courses. And so the courses that made up the gateway curriculum were Global Foundations of Character and Leadership, Global Foundations of Organizations and Business, Literary and Cultural Studies 121, Writing 106, which was our first writing course, writing workshop at Bryant. And then the IDEA program, which is a 1-credit design thinking experience. It's basically a design thinking program that the first years after their first semester come back to campus, and in January during a 72-hour time frame, They're trained, they're presented with a problem, and they come up with all kinds of fantastic solutions, and a trade show happens. And so those are the courses that make up the Gateway curriculum. So that entire curriculum has these 5 learning outcomes as the learning outcomes for each of those courses. So that really provided a great opportunity for the library. And so what happened was myself and a colleague, Maura Keating, were able to be represented on the group that put together the curriculum for the Writing 106 course in particular. And at that point, we were able to embed a librarian into each section of that class. And half the first years take it the fall semester, the other half of the first years take it in the spring semester. And so there is some real intentional information literacy happening in those courses. Additionally, librarians partner in the other classes as well, but the Writing 106 was where we really got space to help teach. Additionally, each of these courses have a community of practice, and the Writing 106 community of practice, along with all the instructors, is also made up of the librarians that participate. And so that way, we've been able to be a very strong voice about making sure we're incorporating information literacy, talking about assignment collaboration and things like that throughout that particular course. Okay, we're ready for the next slide. So along with the change to this learning outcomes-based curriculum, there was the incorporation of the e-portfolio, which has been a long time high impact practice. So in our case, our e-portfolio is a developmental reflective e-portfolio. So the students will create it before they actually arrive on campus, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then throughout those courses that we talked about, those 4 courses, the writing class, the literary and cultural studies class, the global foundations classes, they're all asked to write reflections on their different learning opportunities throughout those courses. And those reflections are all included in one e-portfolio that is shared across their entire first year experience. The template you can see here on the screen has scholarly self as the first tab, and that's the part where student success ideas are sort of incorporated, thinking about how the students are joining the scholarly conversation. As you can see, the e-portfolio is 5% of the grade in each of those 4 classes. So that's sort of the part that gets them to make sure they're writing their reflections. There are prompts given by the faculty. The prompts can vary. Sometimes it is reflect on this learning experience, and sometimes it's much more specific. We also do some e-portfolio tool selection and training. When we first started, we used Blackboard. Now we're using Google Sites. And I also support the faculty and the students if they're having issues with the e-portfolios. So how is it that a librarian is doing that? At the time in 2012, I was in school for an instructional design certificate, and we needed somebody who would be willing to learn how to do everything e-portfolio. And we really at Bryant in the library work with this blended librarian model that was made famous by Stephen Bell and John Schenk, just talking about the incorporation of technology skills, traditional librarian skills, and then sort of instructional design skills. And so that's sort of how that came to be. And luckily, my colleagues in the library are very willing to learn these kinds of things and help in supporting as well. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just one of the reflections I wanted to share. I have 2 others on the next slide. It just shows you the kinds of connections that the students are making across their first year curriculum. So in this case, because they're using consistent language with information literacy across their courses, they're able to see how they're making use of that information literacy within those courses. You can see the last part I bolded here, giving credit where credit is due proves the skill necessary when modifying an argument in an author's original work. So we're getting these really rich reflections as we're doing assessment for the e-portfolios. You can go to the next slide. So here are two more reflections. The first one, you can see the student is sort of identifying personal growth in the skills as a direct result of a specific library lesson. So they're saying after they learned about the CRAP test, they can find and use information more effectively than they could at the start of the year. The second reflection is sort of talking about integrative thinking between the learning outcomes, in this case, talking about information literacy and how it affects them as a critical thinker as well. So again, we're just getting really, really rich information through the e-portfolio. You can go to the next slide. So the third part that I've been working on is the student success course at Bryant University. So when we moved to the Gateway curriculum, I'm sure many of you sort of went, it's interesting that a one-year, first-year seminar sort of went away. What happened to that content? So the intention was to have all of that content included in these other courses that made up the Gateway curriculum. And a lot of that has happened very successfully. But we did see some places where we had some gaps or some faculty maybe that weren't as comfortable teaching. In the writing course, we have some adjuncts, and so getting everybody up to speed with all of the student success components, proved to be something that we needed to work on a bit. And so what we did was get a group of people together. So they're people from academic computing, faculty development, the Centers for Student Success, advising, student affairs in the library. And we sort of established parts from that first year experience seminar that we didn't feel were getting messaged enough in sort of the traditional classroom. Additionally, what were other content areas that maybe we never got to share before, but we could provide to students in advance of them arriving to Bryant. And so the student success course is a summer bridge. The students are take the course starting on August 1st. They have to complete the course before the first day of classes. They print a certificate that they turn into their Gateway classes, and that's 5% of their grade. The first year we created it, there was actually no, we didn't have any percentage of any sort of grade, but yet we still had a 75% completion rate. So we were very excited about that. This class launched in 2014. And at the time, it was made up of 7 modules. You can see I have them listed out here. Module 1 is about Blackboard. Module 2 is about the library that's new this year. Module 3 was building your Gateway portfolio. So we actually had the students build them before they arrived on campus. Module 4 was student success, transition from high school to college. Module 5 was about academic advising and jargon. Module 6 in this one is student affairs. That's also new this year. Module 7 was becoming part of a scholarly community. And then the last 2 modules were actually optional for certain student groups. So one is international students and the other was first generation college students. So it was exciting getting to add the library portion this year. And I'm going to show you a screenshot of that in just a sec. We move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the slide that is showing you what's included in the library section. So myself and Stephen Payne, who's the e-learning specialist here, we are the designers of the course, but the other folks that we mentioned for each module, they're the subject matter experts. And so in this instance, because we created the course initially without a library section, my colleague Maura Keating is the subject matter expert, and she ended up being the designer of this portion, which was great. And so we have a welcome message. She created this video that has students and faculty talking about the importance of the library. And then we ask, we have a first year information literacy assessment that's being worked on here, and the students actually answer some questions. And then we ask the students, how can the library help you succeed in school, and ask them about perseverance and grit. The whole course is basically set up to be self-driven. All of the assessments are sort of auto-graded. The portions like this where we can ask the students to answer an open-ended question, we can gather that information, but it's not required for us to grade it for the students to move along to each section. We use adaptive release in Blackboard, and that auto grades and moves them in through each module of the course. It's made up with mixed media, so you can see videos here. We have crossword puzzle activities. We use Storyline. We use videos from innovative educators, Prezis, and so to make it really, you know, interesting for the students. And one of the most important pieces is that the Assistant Dean for Student Success is the voice of the course. So she sends emails to the entire freshman class from this course at specific times throughout the entire first year, messaging different you know, issues they may be facing at different points. And so that's been really you know, intervention if she needs to. And you can go to the next slide. So the most important thing, I guess, and this is the last part I have in my presentation, is just the culture at Bryant University. When I first started here, flexibility seemed to be a word that was mentioned a lot with our jobs. Things are always changing, and you know, it's something that we really embrace. We are, you know, always ready for the next sort of thing to sort of change everything up again for us. With the design thinking experience for the freshmen, there's a statement about succeed or fail often to succeed sooner. That's something that we work with, saying everything is in a constant state of beta. So all of these kinds of things allow us to innovate in the library, and it's really a culture of innovation at Bryant that helps us be able to try out new things, collaborate, and sort of make exciting projects like the ones that I just described. And with that, I will turn it over back to Ray.
Thanks, Laura. This sounds really great. It's giving me actually some ideas in terms of engaging with international students and using the modules like you were saying, designing them. That's actually really interesting. So thank you for sharing. And we have a second poll here. This is a question about information literacy embedded in the first year program at your institution. So you could say yes, no, or not sure. And I think I have colleagues listening right now, and I think they should say yes, because we are embedded in some contexts. So poll is in progress for attendees only, so I will let Chris, if you want to introduce yourself and then share the results, that would be great.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Bombaro. I'm the Associate Director of, sorry, that popped up, of Research Services and Information Literacy at Dickinson College. And I just wanted to first thanks Ray and the rest of the awards committee for selecting us for this. So the results have popped up. 64% have answered yes, there is information literacy embedded in the first year program, 28% no, and 8% not sure. So I just wanted to start this off by saying that where it's not, you shouldn't be too concerned about it. It has taken us many years to build up our program at Dickinson. And in the next few slides, I will be talking about some of the things that helped us achieve success in our first year seminar program. I'll be focusing mainly on the aspects of our award application that were highlighted in the press release about this webinar, and also some things that I think will be discussed at the upcoming first year experience conference. And before I go any further, I just want to tell Laura that we used to train the Redskins at Dickinson, so we have a connection.
Oh, wow.
So a little bit about Dickinson College. It is a small liberal arts college in central Pennsylvania. We have about 2,400 students. And I kind of threw a note up there about librarians not being faculty or tenure track employees. And I mentioned that only because it can affect how we approach faculty and market our programs. And also because we saw some improvements in our programs when we enlisted the help of faculty allies, as you'll see as I continue with the presentation. So our first year seminar program is required of all first year students, and it's their only required common academic experience. In addition to the blurb I have up there, the description reads that it is designed to help students make the transition to college level academic culture. The first year student seminar teaches students the habits of mind that will enable them to enter the community of inquiry. And three major themes of our first year seminar program is critical analysis, writing, and information literacy. In our library, this is an all hands on deck program. So all of our librarians, regardless of job title, do participate in teaching first year seminar information literacy sessions. We have only 3 information literacy librarians so that are dedicated to teaching. So we're too small to do otherwise. And this is particularly significant for us because first year seminar sessions only take place at 2 time slots during the week, and also research projects tend to be scheduled around the same time in the semester. The current resolution for the first year seminar that I read is fairly new. It was updated in 2007, and that's significant for us because it is also about the time when the writing program was being changed and improved. And the writing program parallels in many ways with information literacy at Dickinson, and that's one of the things I'll be illustrating on the next few slides. After I submitted this slide, I realized that our first year seminar program is actually closer to 40 years old. And in over the years, we have had some challenges with getting 100% participation, but we've gotten mostly to that point in the last 5 years or so with our with some of the improvements and some of the programs that we've added to the first year seminar experience. So having that many sections of first year seminars means that there's considerable pressure on us, I think, to do this well in order to ensure that we get repeat requests for information literacy sessions as faculty teach research courses for the majors. So the 8 or 9 of us who teach first year seminar information literacy sessions have to coordinate regularly to ensure that first year students are getting a reasonably consistent experience with library resources. The first year seminar is the introduction to college research and writing at Dickinson. It's the first part of a 3-tiered writing program. The second one is called Writing Within the Discipline, which I'll talk about later on. And then the third is a senior capstone experience where most students will do some sort of intensive research and writing project. As far as the library is concerned specifically, most of us do 2 to 3 sessions per first year seminar. And that means we end up teaching somewhere between 85 to 100 sessions for the first year seminar program each year in the fall. Some of our other responsibilities include participating in the first year seminar faculty training that usually happens in May, and this is in conjunction with the Writing Center. At this workshop, the goals are to help the faculty build a syllabus and build assignments that incorporate the 3 themes of the first year seminar. This isn't required of the faculty, but we strongly recommend it. And it's when we work with them to try to de-emphasize course content in favor of the skill sets that we noted. We also rigorously assess our first year seminar program, and it has really helped us to spread our message across campus and therefore to reach more students. We were pretty proud about this because the last time the Middle States Association did a accreditation for the college, they held us up as a good example to the rest of campus for good assessment practice. And I will be showing some examples of this later on. So the final tier of the library's participation in the first year seminar program is our academic integrity tutorial, which I'll discuss next. So if Ray, you would please change the slide. Thank you. So the academic integrity program is the first intentional change that happened in information literacy at the first year level since I've been at Dickinson, which has been 15 years. This was sort of a serendipitous project in a number of ways. We were asked to do this because the provost's office noticed what they saw as sort of a disturbing upswing in plagiarism accusations against students. And they asked the library for help in developing a program that could help improve that. And at the time, many of you probably remember that clicker technology was becoming very popular. So we took a year to develop a program that we taught in person using the clicker technology for a number of years. That's since been replaced by an online tutorial that resides in Moodle. When I created these slides, I had embedded links where you see the underlines. I'm not sure that those work anymore. For those of you who would like to see the academic integrity tutorial, I will be more than happy to share it afterward if you would like to email me. So the image that you see here is from the current version of the tutorial, but thanks to assessment, we are actually in the process of redesigning it for a relaunch next year. And the librarian there is saying, here are a few pointers to help you cite properly. The tutorial covers the basics of plagiarism. We define it. We ask students to identify different types of plagiarism, such as patch writing. We examine the elements of citation, and we offer resources for help. And this contains checkpoints along the way, as well as a final quiz that helps with assessment. All new students, first year or otherwise, are required to take this, or they are prevented from registering for the next semester's courses. And this has really helped us initiate conversations with faculty about academic integrity and plagiarism avoidance, and has helped us get some additional sessions in classes. Again, of course, we assess this, and there will be more on that later. So another aspect of the first year seminar program that's important to us is, and that we have intentionally developed as our outreach programs to help us market the importance of information literacy in the first year experience. This can be a challenge for all of us, but I think especially new librarians who aren't used to having to be positively assertive with faculty members and maybe aren't trained to do this in library school. So we do several things to help with this. When new faculty come to campus, they have an orientation session before the start of classes, and we have a special library breakfast for them where we meet, or we have the faculty members meet directly with their subject liaison, and at that point they will learn about all of our library services, including information literacy for both first year seminars and upper level courses. We participate in the first year seminar faculty workshops, which I mentioned, and I'll talk about more in just a minute. And then finally, another important aspect of this is that we have a rotating committee of faculty members who have been great advocates for us among their peers. We meet with them, it's usually 3 or 4 every year. We meet with them once a month to discuss some issues that affect us, solicit their advice for how to best present our case when we need to do things like request additional funding or utilize assessment results. And they've really helped us get our message out to the campus through various committees and other communication outlets. However, I think our most important partnership for the first year seminar program has been our cooperation with the Writing Center. A few years ago, academic oversight of the first year seminar experience was assigned to the Writing Center director, and she was very well aware of the importance of information literacy to the writing program and invited us to start co-hosting faculty workshops rather than just being guest speakers as we had done previously. One of those experiences is the annual workshop for faculty members who are teaching a first year seminar. And again, this isn't mandatory for them, but those teaching it for the first time usually participate, and we often see faculty members who haven't taught a first year seminar in a while participate. Many of them attend because they either don't feel comfortable teaching humanities-based writing courses, or they maybe want to improve from last time, or they have concerns about meeting the goals of the course. And so we usually get more than half of the first year seminar faculty participating every year. I should say that all faculty, this was on an earlier slide, but I didn't highlight it, all faculty at the college are required to teach first year seminars at some point in their sabbatical cycle, the review cycle. So faculty from all divisions will teach this. So during the workshop that we have, what we usually do is review the purpose of the first year seminar and try to emphasize college skills over content. We provide a sample syllabus for them that has both writing and information literacy assignments strategically built in. We encourage faculty to require some simple stealth lessons in their syllabus that maybe don't require direct intervention from a writing tutor or from a librarian. One example that I can cite of this is that when faculty members want to assign students to read an article that we own, rather than simply giving it to them, I will encourage them to require students to watch a brief house-made online tutorial that we developed that teaches students how to locate and download an article using a citation. So before a librarian even meets with them, they will be getting on the library's website. They will learn how to read a citation and use our journal locator to download an article. And as a bonus, this also improves our usage statistics. So of course, all of this is assessed rigorously. And Ray, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And that's kind of where I wanted to focus today is how we use assessment to improve our program. I would say that when we made a concerted effort to conduct formal assessments and start sharing the results with the campus is when we started seeing a number of positive improvements in our information literacy program, not only at the first year level, but also beyond that in other research and writing courses. I learned a lot about assessment techniques at ACRL's immersion program, and if it's possible for any of you who haven't already gone to take it, I do highly recommend it. So first here, I will just briefly describe 3 elements of some assessment we do with first year seminars, and then use the next slides to illustrate in a bit more detail what we do. And again, if any of you would like to see complete copies of the material you're about to see, just small snippets of, I'd be happy to send it to you afterward. So the main portion, the main assessment of our first year seminar information literacy experience is a multifaceted evaluation in which we examine faculty feedback, student learning, and the academic integrity tutorial. We also collect formative feedback following most classes, which also appears in the annual report. The second element that we've done is an authentic writing assessment that we do periodically in conjunction with the Writing Center. In order to conduct this, we started off with a 3-day workshop with a consultant who taught us a really fabulous method for rubric development, which I've used several times since. The writing rubric that we developed as a result of that workshop contains, I'd say, about half information literacy elements. And it was really designed specifically for the expectations of Dickinson faculty members, thanks to the methodology we used. The simple guiding question behind it was, what makes a great paper? And we answered that question by examining anonymous samples of student writing, and then we used the results of that examination to build a rubric that we then used to assess the writing. I could go on for a lot longer about that process, but for now I'll leave it at that until we see some of the results. I took the methodology that I learned at that workshop and gathered our team at Dickinson to create an information literacy only rubric. And I then conducted an assessment of student information literacy skills at all levels. You'll see the results of this again in a couple of slides, but here I will say that we used the information to demonstrate the need for more attention to some of the more difficult concepts around information literacy, such as source selection and evaluation in both first year seminars and upper level courses. And then the last element that I'll talk about is our review of our academic integrity tutorial, which we assess for effectiveness and relevance. And that one is actually pretty easy thanks to the built-in quiz options in our course management system, which is Moodle. This annual assessment helps us recognize when it's time to update the tutorial, and we did decide last year that it is time to redo that, which we're in the process of right now. So next slide, please, Ray. Thank you. So this is one of the results from the faculty portion of our first year seminar assessment. This is administered at the conclusion of the fall semester. This year we had 71% of faculty who taught first year seminars in the fall participate, which was pretty good. This survey has 9 questions on it, and it asks each professor how they expected their class to engage with research material and how effective the students were at doing so. So some of that got a little fuzzy. This particular question asks, how well did students apply information literacy skills to the research assignments? And the possible answers were generally applied information literacy skills to the extent expected of first-year students, applied some information literacy skills acceptably, but struggled with others, made some attempts to apply information literacy skills, but frequently fell back on old habits. And the last one, which was 0, thankfully, which was did not apply information literacy skills at all. If the respondent answered with made some attempts or did not apply at all, then in the survey, a follow-up question is triggered asking specifically how the student struggled. And if we detect patterns in the answer to that question, then we use that data to change focus during the next first-year seminar season. Next, please, Ray. Thank you. Our next facet of first-year seminar assessment is the student course evaluation, which is completed with the help of our institutional research office. This is a pretty big part of the assessment. 3 years ago, we got permission from the provost office to add a supplemental course evaluation form to the packet that students already get at the end of their course. This evaluation asks students what information literacy skills they were expected to engage in during their seminar and whether they found those skills to be useful in other situations. For this past fall, we had 93% participation in this survey, I think partially because the students think they have to fill it out, so that's great for us. And this particular question helps us understand whether the faculty members are treating information literacy as an isolated skill set or whether they are integrating it throughout their courses. And the question asks, were the library research skills you learned needed in order for you to complete additional assignments during your first-year seminar? And we got a very pleasing response to that question, as you can see there. The students do seem to recognize that they are doing some research practice throughout their first-year seminar course. We are able to parse these results by individual first-year seminar section so that if we see a number of no's or any question that we want more detail about, we can dig down deeper into that to see if there's patterns that we can address. Next, please, Ray. Thank you. This chart is also from the results of the student course evaluation, and I personally think that this is one of the most important questions that we ask. What challenges did you face while engaging in research for your first-year seminar? And again, the results of this are used to develop or improve the first-year seminar information literacy curriculum for the following year. Because of this, for the past few years, we've increased our efforts at teaching students more about effective and efficient source selection and evaluation. This particular question is a free response rather than multiple choice, so it does take us some time to read through the responses and group them by category, but it seems that the answers are more meaningful when students are able to recall their challenges rather than simply checking them off a list. In the other category, students often use that opportunity to complain about things about their course that are unrelated to information literacy, but we have detected patterns in the past. Last year, we noticed that students were saying that they were having a difficult time finding or locating material that we owned, and that didn't require them to use interlibrary loan. So we did address that for the most recent semester, which was fall of 2017. So next, please, Ray. Great. So moving on to the authentic writing assessment we did and the rubric that I talked about. This is one of the dimensions of the rubric that was used both for the combined writing and information literacy assessment as well as the information literacy only assessment. I chose this particular block because the evaluation of information is a common theme. So I'll give you a moment to look at this before we look at the results. So the theme here is whether the students are choosing evidence that supports their thesis or their claim or their hypothesis. Next, please, Ray. Thank you. This is a chart that summarized the results of the college-wide information literacy assessment that we conducted, and it has formed the basis for some of our programming beyond the first-year seminar. This particular scale was intended to be applied at all levels, and going into this, we expected first-year students to come in at the 2 to 3 range and seniors to be between 5 and 6. What we found here was that while our attention to the first-year seminar program seemed to be effective, we did need to start paying more attention to the upper-level courses. And since then, we have focused our efforts on building or improving information literacy programs in what's resulted in about a quarter of our majors. And that includes history, English, psychology, sociology, Spanish, political science, and others that I'm probably not thinking of offhand. And we're also currently in the process of finalizing a rubric just for first-year students, since faculty members did ask for that last year. Next, please. Thank you. So finally, in my assessment category is one of the indicators we rely on to measure the effectiveness of our academic integrity tutorial. This question is asked twice during that tutorial, once right near the beginning and once at the end. Have you ever committed an act of plagiarism? And while we don't claim that completing this tutorial guarantees that students won't go on to commit academic violations, this question helps us determine whether learning has taken place during the tutorial. We also examine quiz results and ask for general feedback. And again, as I've mentioned, based on questions and comments from the last 2 years, we've determined that the tutorial is due for an overhaul. Next slide, please. So finally, I wanted to say, sort of unrelated to the academic portion of information literacy in the first-year seminars, and within the entire library, really, it's not only just about academic outreach and our collaboration with the Writing Center and faculty, but these are some of the other ways that we collaborate with other offices and departments to help ensure that library messaging reaches all parts of campus, and that we as librarians are also participating in the life of the campus to the extent that we can. Some of these are obvious. I'm sure most of you participate in orientation in some way. We recently had a workshop with our Center for Race and Ethnicity to check our bias and recognize if we're giving off unwelcome signals, both personally and in the building. We work with the Disability Office to make sure that our library resources, both virtual and physical, are accessible to all of our students. Various library staff members sit on certain committees. Academic advising is an important one. When there are students who are found responsible to have committed plagiarism, they will usually be required to meet with us. We will then sort of be the student's champion to help them recognize what they did wrong and help them go through the process to do it right the next time. And then occasionally we have had librarians teach first-year seminars as well. So there are lots of other ways that we can collaborate and get out onto campus and participate in students' lives beyond classroom teaching. So that is the end of my prepared remarks. I think we have another poll question to ask.
Thanks, Chris. That's really great information. I particularly like the assessment you've designed and the Writing Center collaboration. We have a lot of that going on at Fresno State and some other places I've seen. And just a quick remark, I've had them even help us sort of evaluate our modules and give us feedback. Like, can you create questions where students have to paraphrase, or how do they write more reflective responses when they're searching for a topic? So it's not necessarily like a technical activity where they're fulfilling an assignment, but rather a developmental exploration for their research. We have poll 3 right now. This is the last question for everyone here. What are some of the challenges you face supporting your FYE program? So you've heard from Laura and Chris and addressing some of their opportunities and their what they plan to do. So we're just curious, is it you don't have enough staff, limited funding, there isn't a curriculum, or feel free to put it in the chat box, and I'll have Chris give out the responses.
So this is close. Not enough staff comes in at 53%, and I will agree with that. Having enough staff to handle a first-year seminar program is probably a challenge for many of us. Certainly is at Dickinson too. Limited funding came in at 34%. No curriculum, 47%, and other 22%. And I cannot read the chat box.
No, you can't see it either.
No.
It looks like time was a big one as well. Having
Sure.
enough time with the students.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. Thank you. We're going to move into this other part of the presentation, which is actually a conversation between Laura and Chris. We may just do one question and then we'll open Q&A with the audience. And so these are questions that I started thinking about as someone who has been involved in FYE space, working closely with the students at Fresno State and my previous institution, but also being a co-editor of the First Year Experience Cookbook with Megan Houlihan and learning and seeing what people are doing. So here is the first question for both of you. What's next in FYE services at your institution? What are you working on now if you want to share? Laura, if you want to go first.
Sure. So I think probably what I've been thinking about here at Bryant and working with my my team here is thinking about creating specific reflective prompts for faculty to assign to their students to use in the ePortfolio on their information literacy pieces. So that's not anything that the librarians have actually been a part of in the past. We've really left it to the faculty to create those prompts. And I think that, you know, as I mentioned earlier, some people just sort of say, write a reflection, and the students, you know, being first years too, are sort of like, okay, what does that mean? And then we've seen some really powerful responses when the prompt is just right. So something that I've been thinking about doing is helping to create some prompts that we can give, like a library of prompts, to our faculty who are teaching in the Gateway, so that they have something that they can give to the students, help them focus. And then also because, like I mentioned, you know, for our writing workshop in particular, if there are a lot of, you know, adjuncts who are here, maybe new people, providing those prompts can be very helpful for them as well to help the students focus. So that's kind of one area that I've been sort of thinking about. And then the other that we've been doing is just, you know, in that last slide that I had where I had the word culture there, I had some pictures that looks like we were being kind of silly. And that's another area that we focus on is having fun activities. You know, in the library, we partner with student affairs. We like to, you know, do some things that get the students to have fun in the library. We're looking at doing some scavenger hunts using Bluetooth technologies. We also are thinking about and continuing we do exam kind of relaxation stuff. I know a lot of folks do that. We have a food truck that goes around. This past semester, we had a relaxation fort that we made in the library so the students could sort of go there. So again, just focusing on making the library very welcoming for our students, and kind of, you know, we do that. We're not, you know, scary librarians here. Please come and see us. We're approachable sorts of activities and marketing.
Thanks, Laura. What about you, Chris?
A couple of small things and one big one. We've been trying to figure out a better way to participate in first year student orientation, the general, you know, all college orientation. Since we do get to see all of our students in an academic setting, we don't do things like, you know, a scavenger hunt, but we do try to get students in the library through a free coffee coupon. We have a cafe in the library, you know, kind of a flashier booth to attract students. And also we give them some materials about things that the library can do that's maybe not academic, like printing things or having a quiet study space or reserving rooms. So we'll be working on improving our presence at that this year. Changing and as I mentioned, we're also developing the rubric just for first year seminars Changing the academic integrity tutorial is a year-long process. We're about at the stage where we'll be testing it on current students. And the biggest challenge with that was we've had a lot of students ask for more help with learning how to cite. Literally, creating writing citations. And we can't really, in a tutorial, explain the elements of every possible citation style that they might be required to use. But we think we've come up with a way to more generally and also in more detail explain what a citation is, why they need to do it, what the general elements of it are, and what the ultimate goal of writing that is, better than we did in the last iteration of the tutorial. And then finally, actually, our focus is right now is kind of moving beyond the first year experience. We're focusing our efforts more on building up the writing and the discipline information literacy program, which is also where the Writing Center is putting more emphasis right now. So that's a course that all students have to take. I should say they have to take a course at some point in their Dickinson careers that has that designation to it. And it's a course that's intensive research and writing for a particular discipline. So we're working with more of those courses now, since we've got the first year seminars at a point that we're pretty happy with.
Thanks, Laura and Chris. It just reminds me we could do a fun citation game. I think UCLA colleague Simon Lee has this toolkit. You have students sort of, it's like gamifying citations, which is kind of interesting, but I digress. I know we're running out of time, and I just want to check with Kristen from Credo. Do we have time for questions, or should we conclude and we can follow up via email with the questions we've been getting?
We do have a couple of questions. It looks like maybe we can finish them if we run through them fairly quickly. So I'm just going to jump right in here. This one is for Laura in reference to the modules that you were talking about. So the question is, so these 7 modules are included in the Summer Bridge Student Success course. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That you were talking about? Okay, great. The second question is, do you emphasize to students the importance of gaining information literacy skills to be successful in the workplace as well as college? And then a link was also shared as well, which I will share with the group.
So for us, yes. So when we do the e-portfolio module in the Student Success course, we link to the LEAP survey where we can connect the important skills in beyond college and show that there is a strong connection between our learning outcomes and those beyond. And then additionally, when we go into the Writing 106, those writing workshop courses, we'll often pull up that LEAP survey. So we say, these skills that we want to focus on are, it's not just what Bryant is asking of you, it's what your future employers, it's what your recent college grads are saying are the most important skills. And so we can directly align those, including information literacy.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, Laura and Chris and Kristen, for reading the questions. We're about to wrap up, and I just want to say, if you like today's webinar, check out the Credo FYE guide, Practices for Enhancing Instruction. You can see the link there. In order to best support librarians navigating this quickly growing space, we've put together an interactive guide for librarians discussing tips, best practices, and overviews of different topics relating to the FYE. So each month we'll be releasing a new section. So this past month was on orientation. Next month is on collaboration. So I'll be writing some of that as well, focusing on really great topics, including equity, social justice, diversity, things that really matter to our students today. So with a full release coming this summer. So use that link, and we'll have to continue this conversation through Twitter, Library FYE hashtag. And just a reminder, there will be a recording of the webinar shared within 24 hours, and also a short survey shared directly after the webinar through email. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you in the next session.